We are ready to begin our reading lesson for today. In reading, we have been talking about government. Yesterday, we learned all about how the government pays for things we use. We call those things goods and services. Yesterday, we learned all about taxes, how we pay money when we buy things, and then the government collects that money and then they can pay for things. We know the government pays for things like schools, parks, libraries, police officers, buses and trains. Those are all examples of goods and services that the government pays for. Well, today we're going to talk about how else the government helps people. Remember, the government has two main purposes. One, to keep people safe. Two, help people work together. So our question today is, how does the government help when disaster strikes? How does the government help when something bad happens? That's going to be our focus today. Our success criteria today is answering questions to show we understand a text. In third grade, you should be able to read a text, answer questions using text evidence, and write in a complete sentence. We're going to begin by watching a video and discussing the problems that sometimes happen. We're going to focus today on natural disasters. So remember our question, how does the government help us when a disaster strikes? Let's begin by watching this video together. right. We have just seen real videos from our country. Sometimes there are bad things that happen when the weather isn't working properly or when people make choices. And we just saw two examples of natural disasters. What were the two things that we just saw in the video? What are two disasters that take place when people need help? Ashley, what did we see?
Floods.
We saw floods. The first videos showed water covering large sections of the earth. It ruined homes, it ruined cars, it ruined buildings. A flood is a natural disaster that sometimes just happens. It just happens. What is another natural disaster that we saw in the video? Kaylee, what was the other one?
Buildings going on fire.
Fires. Sometimes the way the earth is, fires just start. Somebody did not maybe light a match or something like that, but sometimes it just happens when there's a lot of trees. A fire will just start and then it spreads. And we saw that there were thousands of homes that were burned and people had to just leave their home. It was nobody's fault. Sometimes we have disasters. We have bad things that just happen. Gloria, what did you notice?
It had fires, and I know about my cousin told me she lives in California, and there's these like California fires. She took a picture.
Wow. It sounds like Gloria's cousin knows all about natural disasters. Those fires took place in California this year in 2020. So our question today is, how does the government help when a disaster strikes? If there is a flood or if there is a fire, those are two examples. How does the government help people? Remember, the government has two main roles. They want to keep people safe. Well, we just saw videos of some cities and towns and communities that didn't seem very safe. When there's a fire, people aren't safe. When there's a flood, people aren't safe. So how does the government try to keep us safe when a disaster happens? We are going to explore this today. Here are some other natural disasters that can happen. We just saw about fires and floods. There are other kinds of natural disasters. Remember, a disaster is something bad that happens. Those are examples like volcanoes erupting or earthquakes happening where the ground is shaking and sometimes splits apart. Or things called tsunamis, which is a huge wave that comes from the ocean, and the water will crash down on the communities that live by the ocean. Sometimes it's weather like tornadoes and hurricanes that happen. There are lots of disasters that sometimes happen in our communities. So how does the government plan to help us? How can the government keep us safe? We're going to talk about that today. Ashley, I see that you have a question. Go ahead, Ashley.
Which one of all the disasters is like almost the worst?
That sounds like an opinion question, Ashley. I'm not sure if I know my opinion right now. I think all of these natural disasters can be very dangerous. I think all of them are probably scary when you live next to it. So I don't know that I have an opinion. Do you have an opinion, Ashley?
I kind of think that probably my opinions could be the tornado and the tsunami.
Thanks for sharing your opinion, Ashley. Remember, opinions are something you think or believe. Other people might feel differently. That's okay. So when a disaster strikes, the government wants to keep people safe. How are they going to do that? Well, let's learn about an organization called Fema. Fema is like a nickname. It stands for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So FEMA is a group of people that are there to help when a natural disaster takes place. Here are some of the jobs of FEMA. Number one, they help pay for temporary housing. We just saw a bunch of people had to leave their homes in floods or with fires. So FEMA is a group of people in our government that will help pay for homes for people. FEMA helps with emergency home repairs. So if your home was ruined in a flood or a fire, they will help you. They will help you by working on your home and helping you fix it so that your family can be safe again in your home. Number three, they help pay. They give money for medical, dental, and funeral expenses caused by the disaster. So if your family is not safe, if your family is in an emergency with a natural disaster, FEMA will help pay for you to go to the doctor if you got hurt, or go to the dentist if you need to have your teeth looked at, or if someone in your family passed away in the flood or the fire, they will help pay for a funeral, for a service where we can honor the people who have died. Sometimes in natural disasters, people do die. It's nobody's fault, but sometimes a disaster strikes and some people are killed. It's very sad. So our government wants to help pay for those things if your family had a disaster. The fourth job is that they help respond to the mess. We saw what a mess it looked like after the flood, after the fire. I can imagine that after a tornado or after an earthquake, it would be a big mess. We saw homes that were destroyed. There was trash everywhere. There was furniture that was floating out of people's homes. That is a big mess. FEMA is in the government and they will help clean up and take care of communities when there's a big mess. Are there any questions about FEMA and what they do when there's a natural disaster? FEMA is one group of people in the government that tries to help. Here is a second organization. The American Red Cross is the name of the group. They are part of the government. How does the American Red Cross try to help? Here's some of the jobs that they do when a disaster strikes. Number one, they provide shelter, food, and hygiene. Hygiene is things that we need to take showers, brush our teeth, comb our hair. I'm going to draw a little toothpaste tube here. When we lose our homes, if there was a fire and I had to leave my home very quickly, I still need a place to sleep. I still need to eat, and I still need to take baths and clean my body. So the American Red Cross tries to help with that. They will give things to people. Look at these pictures over here. I see like big tubs of stuff. I'm not sure what's in there, but I'm guessing that they have things like clothes and soap, maybe food in there to help people. A second thing they try to do is they collect things. Bulk amount of items for people to use as they rebuild. So the American Red Cross will ask other Americans for things that they can collect. So if I have maybe some shoes that I'm not going to wear anymore, I might donate them. I might give those shoes to the American Red Cross. And then if there's another woman who has a natural disaster, she might be able to wear my shoes. So this is how the government is trying to keep people safe. The American Red Cross is another part of the government, and they will help people. They also offer health care and counseling. Counseling is when you need to go talk to a doctor, and it helps you with not feeling stressed or worried or depressed or anxious. Sometimes it helps us to talk to somebody and say, I went through this really hard thing and I need some help. Doctors are there to help you just by talking. It can help you with your mind and your heart. So here are two groups that we're learning about today. The first group was Fema. This is part of the government and how the government helps us. The second group is the American Red Cross. There are two groups that the government uses to help us when something bad happens.
Yeah, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Today, boys and girls, you will read about how the government helped a community as they prepared for a flood. We already saw a video all about a flood after it happened. Today, you will answer questions about the text and share your opinions about what happened. We know that the government tries to keep people safe. So today we're going to read about a community when they knew a flood was going to come, they tried to prepare. The government tried to help people get ready so that nobody died and people were safe and that people's homes weren't going to be destroyed. Today you will click on Assign to Class folder, Red ELA, and today it's called How Does the Government Help with Disaster Relief? Open your task and be ready to work together. We know that today we are practicing our skill of answering questions to show we understand a text. Our big question today, how does the government help us when a disaster strikes? Let's go ahead and look at slide 2 together. Slide 2 shows the text that we're going to be reading today. Here are some directions that everybody needs to follow today. The directions say to read the text, then answer the question in a complete sentence. This is third grade work. When you find your text evidence in the text, you then need to answer in a sentence. It is not acceptable for third graders to write 1 or 2 words. After you answer in a complete sentence, make sure that you have highlighted your evidence. Show me where in the text did you read that? How did you know? Remember, detectives look for evidence to solve crimes. Students need to use their highlight tool and go find evidence in the text to show that they understand the question. We are going to look at slide 2 together, and then I'm going to put you into a breakout room for you to talk about the question and look for evidence together. Let's begin by reading the text independently to ourselves. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to silently read the text to yourself, thinking about the main idea about this text. What's it all about? And be ready to start looking at our question. The question you are listening for, the answer you're listening for, is what services did the government provide to help prepare for the flood? What services did the government provide to help prepare for the flood? I'm going to be the reader. Students are thinking about the text, reading it with me, and listening. Working Together by Sarah Glasscock. The National Weather Service predicted that bad flooding would hit Fargo, North Dakota in 2013. The city needed a plan to protect people from flooding. So the elected officials from the federal, state, and city governments met. Working as a team, they began to prepare for the flooding. They wanted to keep water out of homes and businesses and off the streets. So they decided to fill 1 million sandbags. They planned to use the sandbags to build walls to keep the floodwater out. More than 8,000 volunteers worked for 16 days. The workers included middle school and high school students. They filled almost 2 million sandbags. Jack Burns worked several days. As a student in this city, I feel a responsibility to help, Burns said. Citizens have responsibilities. The volunteers were being good citizens. The National Weather Service was right. In April, the Red River rose. This caused flooding in the area around Fargo. People used the sandbags to build walls. The walls helped keep the water from rushing in. As a result, no homes or businesses were badly damaged. Because the government and citizens worked together, the city of Fargo was safe. We are going to go into a breakout room and talk about what we heard in the text. Our question is, what services did the government provide to help prepare for the flood? When you go into your breakout room, you will talk about this question, and I want you to look for evidence. What service did the government provide to help the people prepare? Okay, I'm looking for third graders who can share out their text evidence that they found. What services did the government provide to help prepare for the flood? What did we find in the text? What did we find? Angela, go ahead.
they filled sandbags.
Absolutely. So we heard about people who had bags and they put sand in it. We call that sand bags. So Angela said what we heard about. So it says they decided to fill 1 million sandbags. Okay, I already found some evidence. How did they actually put the sandbags together? After the government decided to do this, how did the sandbags get made? Who put them together? Gloria, go ahead.
They built it as a wall for it could stop water.
Absolutely. So it says they plan to use the sandbags to build walls to keep the flood water out. So here's a picture. Here's the bag, and then there's sand in it. And then each family, each community could put a bunch of the bags together and kind of build a wall. So maybe it would be like a sandbag here, a sandbag here. They kind of build a wall using sandbags so that the water cannot go through it. And it protects people's homes and the community. Okay? So after the government decided that they were going to fill bags, I noticed in the text it says that there were volunteers. It says more than 8,000 volunteers worked for 16 days. They filled almost 2 million sandbags. So people like the people in these photos, the citizens of the community, they got together, they started filling the bags with sand, and that's how the government helped provide a plan to keep people safe. So now I can type my answer in a complete sentence because I have read the text. I have highlighted evidence that helped me with my answer. The government gave sandbags. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. The government gave sandbags to build a wall. This is how the government provided a service to the people in Fargo, North Dakota. The government gave sandbags to build a wall. Type your response in a complete sentence. Check out, I have a capital letter. I have correct punctuation, and all of my words make sense. That's how I know this is a third grade sentence. You may type yours and put it in your answer box. Your job today is to work on slides 3, 4, 5, and 6. All of them have a question about the same text that we read together. Check your directions that you are answering in a complete sentence and highlighting evidence in the text. You need to finish the slides today in your work time and then turn it in using the green check.